Hello, everybody that has decided to join me this evening. I'm so happy to have you with me on this live. Oh, and Celeste, I've already got a comment. That's beautiful. Thank you very much. How are you all doing? I think it is a time. Hello, Elizabeth. Welcome. Hello, Emma Jane. Welcome to you. Yes, please. The live chat is on. So if you just wanted to say hello, please do. It's always nice to hear from you. And then also drop a question if you want me to address that. These Sunday series are really just evolving. I had my first one last Sunday and I enjoyed it. I probably found myself off in a number of directions, even though I had a topic that I wanted to share. But that's okay because I kind of get led as I'm talking. Kristen, hello, Kristen. Namaste to you, Celeste. And I suppose what it is really is that once I tune in, which I do before the session and meditation, I get a general idea of what I want to talk about. But I'm also here for you to ask questions because while I'm tuned in and connected, the answers hopefully will come. So what I wanted to share with you today is something that hello Maya, is something that I mention a lot when I talk, and it's something that brings me back into alignment. Hello Rashmi, nice to have you join me. Is the sentence, "We are God's greatest experiment in distraction." And what does that mean for you, for me, and everyone on the planet? Because when I was putting a whole lot of pieces together about 4 or 5 years ago, as always, walking in the forest, which is where I get my ideas from. Hello, Kerry. Nice to have you. First Sunday session. Fantastic. The more, the merrier. So I'm probably going to have to stop saying hello, right? Otherwise, I'm not going to get very far in my talk. But I say hello to everyone who's here. Was the whole concept that, and you will have to look at my last video for this, the mindfulness and the coherent. But if we really wanted to begin and really expand our spiritual journey and our connection, and especially for those of you who want to tune into the field, who want to connect with your guides, the angel source, however you want to call it, is that we start working with this energy center of the heart. Oh, thank you, Celeste. I'm with you. Buffering. Because this heart center, and as humans, we've just labeled it as that, right? Simplistically, heart center is actually the most powerful energy center. And it has been interesting to note that one of my videos that I shared last year, May, after seeing a lot of clients who were saying they were just crying for no reason and they would spontaneously burst into tears, even if they were at the supermarket checkout counter, is that I felt I needed to share with the viewers and people out there that as this heart center opens, the very first sign that something is going on is normally sadness, right? Which sounds counterintuitive. But if we look at this heart center as our satellite dish, which it is, right? And it's probably going to become the most important energy center we work with, and probably the only energy center we will be left with as energetic beings on this planet, but probably not for the next 50 to 100 years. But it becomes both a receiver and a transmitter of information. So if we imagine that this heart center, for most of us, for most of our lives, is quite tightly closed for a number of reasons. We may have not had a safe upbringing in our home, so we shut ourselves away. We may have had a partner who didn't acknowledge us or might have been a bit condescending. We shut ourselves away. Growing up in school with people around us telling us how we should and shouldn't be, and the expectations of how we should behave lead us to a longer path of becoming less and less in tune with who we are as a heart-centered being and as vibration. So this heart center is a very powerful place, and it is the one that has been most triggered during this time of COVID and being stuck at home. For a lot of people, it's been ripped open, which has actually led to a lot of sadness, right? Because if we acknowledge it's a receiver, and you are a sensitive being, as are a lot of people who listen to my videos, is that you'll be receiving and picking up not only your own sadness, but the sadness of the collective. And so if I look back at this one video that has just been rocketing up in views, which means a lot of people are now experiencing this, it's like we have a global wave of heart center opening on the planet. Now, I have also a number of people who say, right, Lisa Jane, I want to open my heart center. If you say the heart center is going to be the place of connection, it's where I fine tune my psychic abilities, it's where I will be able to engage with people and understand where they're coming from. How can I fast track it? Well, that's the strange thing about the heart, is you can't really. It's something that whilst you can work on your self-development and your spiritual growth, it's almost like this heart center has to be triggered by an external thing to open up and to process. By all means, we can do meditations to help work with the center, to help engage with the center, to help unloosen connections and burdens to that center. But the opening of the heart center, it's almost like that blossoming of a flower, you know? You would never go and force the bud of a flower open. You acknowledge each and every stage. So, you know, like those experiments the children did in growing the beans in the cotton wool, is that every stage was written down and every stage was acknowledged. Oh, look, there's a little leaf. Oh, look, there's a stem. And then eventually you might get more stems and more leaves. As humans, we really need to stop being distracted by everything that is happening out there and to build an awareness and a gentleness and a nurturing of our own growth and spirituality. And not necessarily to label it as, I want to open my third eye, I want to be psychic, I want to connect with my guides. All beautiful, amazing things. But our first priority, our first responsibility is really to look at our journey in a nurturing, in a gentle way, and acknowledge whatever stage we are in as the right stage for us. If I have to talk about my own spiritual journey, I mean, I've been spiritual most of my life in the sense that I have always wanted to know God. I've always wanted to know what God is, what it means, how do I get in touch with that. And as I've grown more mature in age with all of my experiences, I have realized that the God we all seek out there is actually the God within us. And by God, I don't mean this arrogant, all-knowing, omnipresent experience. I mean the connection to yourself, the knowledge and awareness of yourself as someone who can have an impact on and can create the world that you wish to live in. And if we can start to work with that inner sense of God, of knowing, of awareness, then we build the energetic field necessary to be able to connect with and engage with those people out there. So, you know, on the spiritual path, I always say to people, the first step is always self-awareness. And that's not always easy, right? Because we get entangled in our own stuff. We get distracted. So, for instance, now where we're in lockdown, there are many things happening out there, many issues, people having different thoughts about things, and pretty much all of them causing distractions and segregation, which is all fine because everyone's entitled to their own opinion. But always check in whether that stuff that is happening out there is taking you outside of yourself. Because during this lockdown, for everybody pretty much across the globe, we've been given an ideal opportunity to start a path, if we are not already on it, of self-awareness and understanding who we are. So practical things. If you haven't started a journal, get one and start writing. Because by creating a journal, you are already taking yourself out of this center where you kind of get a bit confused and you become more the observer. And if there's one thing I've learned, if you want to fast track self-awareness, is to become the observer of yourself. And this takes time and commitment and practice, right? Because if we can't step away and become the observer, we become engaged in this battle, in this thought process, belief system that just starts churning around like a record in our mind. But if some thought comes up and you're aware of that thought first and foremost, and it is a thought and patience, yes, Maya, absolutely. If that thought has come in and you're like, oh, why am I thinking that same thought again? Take yourself outside. Become the observer and look at it from a distance. Because what we have really not been taught or not been made to be aware of is that our mind is our greatest ally in this journey. We have been taught that to sit in silence and stop the mind is where we need to be. And while sitting in silence and meditating is very definitely a path forward, if we fight continually to keep that mind quiet, we don't allow ourselves opportunity to engage in a higher mind. The higher mind that is ultimately served and serviced by the intuition and the wisdom of the heart, because those two are very intimately connected. The heart center energy field, which acts as a receiver and transmitter, and then that information is converted into something we understand through our higher mind. So a lot of people say to me, yes, you tell me my heart is the seat of the intuition, but how do I work with it? I always remind them that it's a combination of the heart center opening and becoming a broader receiver of information, bringing it in, but then using and accessing the higher mind to provide you with insights by the way of visual thoughts, imaginatory images and sensations, possibly clairsentience and clairaudience and all of those things. But it's the heart that receives, but it's the mind that interprets. And so getting back to your point, Maya, patience. Yes, patience is part of watching that seedling grow. We wouldn't go and force the bud of a flower open, because what's going to happen? There is no flower at that point, and it will stop growing. So in this continual chase as a human, it can also become a chase in the spiritual journey. I want to be psychic. I want to know what star seed I am, what planet I come from. I want to connect with my alien guides. All amazing, and yes, definitely, but don't jump ahead of yourself. Don't rush to that point without really acknowledging where you are in your journey, because we can't force that stuff. And if we do, we might be connecting with something that's not necessarily aligned to our highest good. So it's with patience, as Maya said. It's with nurturing. It's with gentleness that we really take into account and be honest about it. Where are we in our journey? Are we ready to experience those things? Or is our ego going to come and just sidetrack us? Because that can happen, right? Suddenly you find these superpowers and the ego comes in and says, right, show me my best life. Or you meet someone, you're like, I've got to tell you this. The information came in for you, which is great. But first, develop that heart center so that the receiver, your satellite dish, is tuning in to the highest frequency that is good for you, that will enable you to move and shift to the other places that you need to go to in order to allow that flower to blossom. So self-awareness takes responsibility, right? And maybe we need to ask ourselves the question, am I really ready to take full responsibility for everything in my life? Because if we are still looking outside to name, blame, shame, or perhaps make excuses with, we still haven't come into and taken responsibility for this place, which is where we need to start. Because for me, everything in circles, we're moving in circles now, no more conflicting triangles. So symbolically, circles are important. So first circle is our circle of self-awareness, where we need to work in gently nurturing and where we need to patiently and gently watch the growing of that seedling. Our next circle is the circle of awareness of other people, where we begin to understand where that person may be coming from without jumping to conclusions, assumptions, or working from our ego. That's the second circle. And then when we have moved through that, and it doesn't necessarily have to be in this order, although the self-awareness is key, is that then we become aware of how our circle of influence influences that person's circle, and how the two when the circles meet, what happens? Is it harmonious? Is it friction-filled? Is it static-filled? Is it stressful? Because then that's when you come back into your circle of self-awareness and say, right, what is it that's happening within me? Because it's always ever within you. We don't like to say it, but it is. And my children definitely don't like to hear that. When I say, when you are triggered, it's your trigger. It's inside your field. Okay, unless someone's chasing you with an axe or something, then it's definitely something you need to run away and move away from. But if someone comes in and says something and you suddenly feel criticized, or you suddenly feel like you have to defend yourself, the first thing we need to do is calmly deal with the situation, but then go away and get out your books and your journals and say, right, why did I feel so triggered by this? Because we need to start moving those little buttons, those little energy balls that are in our field that act as this huge buzzer when someone comes and pushes it. That's the self-awareness I'm talking about. The self-awareness that comes from knowing that is really never about the other person when you're triggered, when you kind of feel like you just have to react. And this is also in the broader context of where we find ourselves in lockdown, right? It's not really about Cyril and that political party or another political party, or the fact that we can't go in the forest, or the fact that we can't visit our friends. What is it within you that is being triggered by what's happening out there? Because it is never about out there. Because if we really go and boil everything down to energy, we're living in a hologram anyway. And we're all creating this picture. And that's what I spoke about in the first Sunday series, if you want to go back and listen, anyone, is that that hologram is about to change. So don't get invested in what's happening out there. By all means, be passionate about things, go along with it, absolutely have your own opinion. But just ask in that engagement, are you really putting all of your energy out there and not focusing on here? Are there some triggers in here that are being pushed? And most people at this point in time, the trigger that it is getting down to the most is that of feeling safe and that of feeling abandoned or defenseless or lonely. And that trigger, that wound of abandonment sits with everybody. It's one of our biggest things, right? To get past that wound, where we can actually be comfortable in our own space and not want to look externally for happiness, for health, for success. Celeste, I have a naturally strong throat chakra and can speak my truth with ease, but I have been challenged by the idea to work on my heart chakra. Okay, exactly. Thank you for sharing, Celeste. It is true. This heart center is probably the most difficult center to work with. And we don't always know how to do that, right? But for me, the step of self-awareness gets us on a journey where we can start unpacking and clearing away all of that stuff that boxes up our heart chakra, because that's really what it's about. It's like we have to really move and shift all of these energy blocks and these cords and these buttons and everything that kind of closes this in, because it's a bit like that pearl in the oyster, the real true spiritual heart center. It's a really special, beautiful place, but it's tucked away nicely for pretty much everyone on the planet. And when it is forced open by something, or it is aggravated by something, it is very often a painful process. And when I say painful, it's either agonizingly lonely or terribly sad. Depression. Depression is actually talk for another day. I won't go there. It has to do with the heart chakra, but not completely. But this heart, the spiritual heart that beats inside of us, that pulses inside of us, that is the bridge between heaven and earth, that is the energy center that is going to enable us to be connected unconditionally to all, is not an easy place to work with. I know from my own journey where I felt very unsafe as a child. I grew up in a violent alcoholic home. And so what I did with my heart is I packed it so tightly away. I thought it was all okay and I was doing fine. I was happy. I used to joke a lot because that was my way of coping. And I thought everything was fine until one day in my 40s, something came and this whole thing exploded. It was like the shotgun came and blew me to pieces. It took a while to pick the pieces up. But Mark Nemo also describes this in one of his books and in the movie The Power of the Heart, which again, I think I've referenced before, but if you haven't watched it, please go watch it. Is that the heart is triggered to open through suffering. And it's a difficult thing to grasp that really, isn't it? Through suffering, you're going to grow. And it doesn't necessarily always need to be that. But what has happened and what I've seen over the last few years, and especially when I created that video in May last year, I think it was Crying for No Reason, the expansion of the heart chakra, which interestingly enough, hundreds of people from America are now watching. Isn't that interesting? A lot of sad people in America. Is that this area can be triggered spontaneously to open. And what was happening over the last 2 years is that those people would put up their hands and said, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready to change. I'm ready to step into my truth, my authenticity. It's like they had this flashlight, you know, those UV lights at the disco, where if you're wearing white, pictures show. It's like this UV light suddenly started shining, and this huge wave of divine energy came in and said, whoa, where are those people who have said their hearts want to open? Okay, there you go, there you go, there you go. And there was this wave of sadness, and we're going through another wave now. So if you are feeling sadness, if you are feeling maybe, how do I get in there? Step gently. With the sadness, you've got to let it run through you like a river. And it's not easy, I understand that. But you've got to let it move through you. Because as it moves through you, it works powerfully with this heart center. And if you can let it just move, it will go. And it will make way for something else. Right? And my recent post on Instagram and Facebook was also around what can be worked with the heart center. And that is your authentic truth. And that's also not an easy one. Because when we are truthful with those people who have expectations of us, they're not going to like it. Because what we share with them is not what they want to hear. Which is why, for the most part, as you were growing up as a child, you closed your heart center because your truth might have been squashed a lot. Even as a toddler, when I see parents say, the toddler says, I'm cold, mommy, I want to put my jacket on. And they're like, no, you can't possibly be cold, the sun's shining. Dismissal of their truth, small truth. But the dismissal of a small truth leads to a dismissal of a greater truth. Right? So all of those people who force their child to invite the whole class, even though the child says, but I don't like that one and I don't like, no, darling, we have to invite. No, don't do that. Let your child tell you their truth and appreciate and respect it. And if you can be in a relationship where you can accept someone's truth, even though it hurts you, even though it's not what you want to hear, but you receive it respectfully, you are doing them one massive favor. You are treating them with the unconditional love that will begin to open up and expand your heart center. Have I spoken too much? Do you get that? But the heart center is itself the seat of the soul. And as we're moving now in the evolution of humans, in our transformation as spiritual, energetic beings, it is going to be the center where you will probably be asked to do the most amount of work, where truths will need to be spoken, and they're not going to be easy. Truths around the globe are going to be popping. I saw that a number of years ago, all part of the authentic expression of our natural state. So if I was to summarize around the heart center and what you can do, because the heart center is going to be your self-awareness, then it is to be gentle, to be nurturing. Do not try and force it. External circumstances may well cause that to open more. Stepping into your truth, even when it's difficult to speak it, is going to enable this to open. To share a bit of my journey, and it's been quite a journey, to be honest. But one of my biggest truths, that was also probably one of the most hardest things I ever did in my life, was actually to accept that I did not want to be married to the father of my children after 20 years of marriage. Nothing majorly wrong with the relationship, no violence, no abuse or anything. But I was suffocating and I wasn't able to be my true self. So it was the balance between following my soul and what it was telling me, and then demolishing all that I built up, because of course I built this beautiful, peaceful family because I didn't have one. That was not easy. That's probably an understatement. So, but that led to this opening and then me really understanding how to work with it. So in hindsight, very important decision. I wouldn't be where I am now if I had made it. Rashmi asks, which crystals work best to support the heart center opening? Interesting question. I'm not a crystal expert, and I know there's a number of heart chakra crystals like the rose quartz and other things you can use. But for me, Rashmi, if I was completely honest, no crystal is going to help you with the heart center opening. That's real self inner work. The crystals you can surround yourself with. So if you wanted to make a rose quartz circle, asking for source energy to come in, charge the crystals and shine that light on your heart center so you can work with it, absolutely, right? Because one of those colors, the color pink, which is in the rose quartz, is something I often say to people when you want to work with someone on an energetic level, but you don't really want to use the words or anything else. Because, and now I'm getting guided like, okay, share that one with them. Okay, so I'll share this one with you. We overcomplicate things in our head. I've spoken about how we want to move from this lower mind to the higher mind because the heart center opening is connected to the higher mind, and that's where your communication needs to happen. But if we haven't got there yet, if we really just want to start working with this as a communication tool, then if you are heading towards a conflicting situation or a conflicting conversation, something where you know that if you're going to present your truth, it's going to rub that person up the wrong way, even if you're going to speak in a calm voice, or the truth you're going to share is a difficult one for you and for them, then to work energetically with the heart is to visualize, and again, this might be a topic for another day, imagination, is to visualize you sending, so you can close your eyes now and imagine it, this pink wave. Very gentle, it's like a mist. It's not a strong liquidy energy, it's not thick and gel-like, it's like a mist. Is you sending this wave of pink mist from your heart center and totally enveloping and wrapping that person. Before you share your truth, you can do it beforehand, you can be in another room, you can imagine that you're doing that. And then as you're talking, because you're sharing from the heart now, we don't want to just gabble from the mouth. We want to share from our heart, from a place of compassion for ourselves and others. You visualize this pink light exuding from your heart center and covering them. I promise you, the conversation and the energy of the conversation will be completely different than if you hadn't done that. Because what you're doing then is engaging with the other person energetically from the heart center. And it doesn't matter at what stage your heart center is in its opening. Because for me, and this is my belief, the heart center is only going to be fully opened once you have followed the embodiment process. And again, I've done a video on this, on how to assist the soul to embody into the physical presence. Once that embodiment has taken place, then working with certain tools like coherence, this heart center can expand and it will become the overriding force field that contains your physical body. Oh, Maya, attest to that. The pink light. Is that what you're talking about? Sorry, I'm just looking at Maya's comment about saying she can attest to that and that it works. I have used it in a number of situations and it has worked. When I was in corporate, I used to sit in meetings where there was lots of conflict and fractured energy and just beam out pink light. I didn't have to have any association with those people. I didn't have to have any ideas about whether I liked the person or not, or whether I agreed with what they were saying. I just sent out this pink light. Because, of course, as humans, we want to be entertained and we want the stories, and I'm one of those. I'm curious, I'm analytical, which is probably why I've got a very busy upper higher mind. We want to know those. But actually, it's about energy and the underlying energy that you are working with that will ultimately shift things. Because you can go and change the external, you can change your job, you can change your partner, you can do everything and still be uncomfortable here. Because the first job is self-awareness and self-energetic work in whatever way suits you. Hello, Elizabeth. Yes. So, if there's no more questions around that heart center for now, I think I've put across the message that it's a very important energetic center, and especially at this point. And I felt I need to share that because, like I said, one of my videos is just the views are just rocketing up because people are experiencing pain and sadness and they don't know what to do with it. And they may well never have worked with themselves energetically before. So I wanted to, we've been going half an hour, but I was guided today to maybe end off with a little bit of drumming. So those of you that maybe want to sit with me for the next 5-10 minutes, where I will play my shamanic drum. And, you know, I don't know whether you're in a place where you can kind of be quiet, but all it will require is for you to just close your eyes. And I will use the beat of the drum to just take you to a place, you know, and maybe you can set the intention. Yes, okay, Emma Jane, good. I have to put some stuff on my lips though, because my lips are getting dry. That's what comes when you have skin cancer on your lips and you've had half of them cut off. You know. So, what I would suggest is that while I get my drum, is that you just sit and without forcing, without asking any questions or setting the outcome, is just asked to work with your higher mind, which is really the imagination, to send you any visuals that you need to know in order to just tune into the heart center, right? And I'm going to use a beat of alignment. I've already set the intention where I've connected deeply with the heart of Mother Earth, because as a shaman in some of my work, that's what I work with, the element. So I just want you to sit and first of all, just say hello to the Mother Earth, and then just listen to the music, the beating, and just see how it feels. And Celeste, yes, especially for you, see how that feels for you. See if any visuals come up when you tune into that center. And like I said, please don't try too hard. It's a very simple process, just allow. So make yourselves comfortable and be in a place where you can close your eyes. You're not going to fall off your chair or anything. I just want to get my drum. And to those of you who've been in a drumming circle, you'll know the sound of my drum. Okay, so I have my drum here. I'm going to start off with a few. I'm going to take my glasses off. Actually, I don't need them for this. So I'm going to start off with a few light beats. And then I'm going to go into the shamanic rhythm. And I'll probably do that. It's going to be a short one. It doesn't have to be long. I'll just go according to how I'm guided. And you just sit there and you just feel the drum. Know that I'm holding the energy. We're all connected. We're all part of this live session. And then you're welcome to send me comments in private afterwards, because after that, I'll just close off the session and say goodbye to you all. Right. You ready? Okay. Okay, everybody. I hope you're still with me and haven't traveled off into some magnificent land, although I'm sure you did. We can use any tool we want to connect into our heart center. And the more you spend time learning to understand this heart center and really connect with it, and to observe the chatterings of the lower mind, and to begin to connect with the imagination of the higher mind, my pleasure, Elizabeth, that then you can begin to work with yourself in a way that transcends or moves away from the very logical, conscious chattering that we are so used to experiencing. So if you enjoyed the live session, please hit a like and share. I will continue with the Sunday series and just go along with whatever guidance comes. Often during the week, I also get prompted to share some additional videos on my YouTube channel, but I'm also open to any suggestions in terms of what you'd like me to talk about. Pleasure, Emma Jane. Thank you, Maya. And also, I can do shamanic drumming sessions online. So if we thought that would be a useful thing to do, then we can certainly do that and set the intention and work together, because we are all energy. We are all connected, especially at the heart center. And when I do this work, whether I'm sharing through a live or sharing on a YouTube video or doing meditation, I am always channeling the energy that is needed for your healing and highest good. And so healing happens anyway. It's the human that just needs to talk. But the energy comes through and is transmitted in whatever way it is intended for you to receive. So I'm sure you've all got lots to do on a Sunday evening, rushing off to work tomorrow, or maybe not. But I really wish you a very beautiful rest of Sunday. Please, please, please check in with where you are being distracted. Is it important for you to be distracted? Oh, that's beautiful, Elizabeth. Thank you. I appreciate you too. And really just begin to come back to self, come back to self. I wrote a little poem, prayer for you, whatever you want to call it, before I did the session. It just kind of came through. So I'm going to share that once this video goes live on the text underneath, and know that it comes from my heart to yours. You can replicate it, you can copy it, you can print it out, you can do whatever it is you want to remind yourself that you are an energy being, you are a divine soul, that you are in the process of becoming and experiencing and expressing yourself in a way that you might not have up until this point. I see you all. I see your beautiful light, and I hope that you all walk a path that one day you will also be able to see what I see. So I thank you so much for your time. I thank you so much for listening. It's always a pleasure to share with you. Oh, look, I'm waving my drumstick in the camera. So take care and much love. And please directly email me if you want to talk something privately, but I'm here. Connect in whatever way you feel. Love and blessings to you all. Thank you so much for joining. Bye for now.